They say beauty is power, but in classic Hollywood, beauty was currency, and some of the most gorgeous men who ever graced the silver screen paid for their fame in ways that would shock you. Beauty that never came free. Tyrone Power was the face of American cinema in the 1940s. Women adored him, men envied him. But what no one knew was that Power learned early on that beauty in Hollywood isn't a gift, it's currency. In 1936, before signing with 20th Century Fox, Power was invited to vacation in Palm Springs with an older producer, later named in FBI files, for hosting casting parties disguised as private retreats. A staff member told journalist William Mann that Power was asked to try on swimwear. Then he was asked to try obedience. The very next morning, he got a 5-year contract. The story didn't stop there. For years, Power's calendar was filled by Hollywood elites when he wasn't on set. His appearances at Brown Derby nightclubs always came with whispers that he was paying debts with charm. His close friend, actor Cesar Romero, once said, Tyrone knew that to stay where he was, he had to protect the image, even if the cost was never being allowed to tell the truth. But there were others like Montgomery Clift who couldn't protect that image because they gave up everything for fame and lived forever, haunted by the nights they had to lie down just to get their name on casting lists. The man who sold himself in pieces. Montgomery Clift never smiled for long in front of cameras. His gaze always carried quiet sadness, as if it didn't belong to this world. That made sense because Hollywood was a place where he once sold himself, just to land a supporting role. According to diary entries left by Elizabeth Taylor, Clift once confided, "A friend introduced me to a stage director to trade intimacy for a part. When Taylor asked if he regretted it, Clift simply said, no. But every time I remember it, I feel like a part of me died." In 1945, before anyone knew his name, Clift agreed to a private audition at a Bel Air mansion where acclaimed director Joshua Logan was looking for a fresh face. After the session, Clift stayed there for 3 days. An elderly housemaid recalled. He cried a lot, but when he left, he had a contract in his hand. Even later, when fame came, Clift dodged every question about how it all began. Once, when asked by Variety, he answered, "I started in theater and in a few rooms where no one was watching." He lived in loneliness, battled alcohol, and died with a crooked smile. No one knows what secrets he took to the grave, but what we do know is this. Clift didn't sell himself once. He sold himself in pieces, night after night, until there was nothing left to keep. The teen idol's buried truth. In the 1950s, no one outshone the golden glow of Tab Hunter. Bright smile, chiseled frame, the all-American boy. But behind the idol facade was a truth Hunter had to bury for half a lifetime. In 1950, at just 19, Hunter was arrested at a gay party in Long Beach, a scandal that nearly destroyed his career before it started. But a powerful, unnamed producer bailed him out, not with money, but with an exclusive 5-year contract. When asked about the scandal later, Hunter would only smile faintly and say, "I didn't lose anything, just had to stay the night with someone I couldn't say no to." Throughout his golden years, Hunter was forced into fake romance contracts with young actresses like Natalie Wood and Debbie Reynolds, all to cover up his real relationships. Later in his memoir, Tab wrote, "I wasn't chosen for my acting. I was chosen because I was willing to be quiet and beautiful in the way Hollywood needed." But Tab wasn't the only one living a double life. The next man made millions swoon as a TV doctor, but behind the camera, he was someone completely different. The TV doctor's double life. As Dr. Kildare in NBC's 1961 hit series, Richard Chamberlain was the dreamboat of millions. But behind the scenes, he lived in fear. Fear of exposure, fear of losing it all if just one intimate photo leaked. A former assistant told Hollywood Insider he never left the studio with his lover. All meetings happened at his private apartment, windows always shut, curtains always drawn, phone always unplugged. Chamberlain was pressured into after-hours auditions held past midnight in Beverly Hills, where directors and producers evaluated candidates not on performance, but on physical compliance. Once, he was asked to privately engage with a network executive before a new role was greenlit. When a male co-star suggested going public, Chamberlain coldly replied, "If I lose this role because I love you, will you be able to feed me?" He wore the mask of the perfect gentleman for 40 years. Only after retiring did he dare admit the truth. But there were others like Troy Donahue, who never had time to even consider wearing a mask. Midnight casting party. With golden hair and surfer charm, Troy Donahue was the national heartthrob of the 1960s. But when the lights went out, he didn't go home. He showed up at invitation-only parties where casting didn't happen in front of cameras, but behind closed doors. At one gathering in 1958 at a Mulholland Drive estate, Donahue was summoned into a room where director Jack Warner and two wealthy backers waited. A server present recalled, "He came out 30 minutes later, face pale as a sheet. He hadn't been asked to act, just to let them see what he looked like without clothes." After that night, he was offered a 7-year contract with Warner Brothers. From then on, every appearance Donahue made came with a price. In a leaked journal, he wrote, "Every time I appeared on screen, I had to erase a part of myself. After a few years, there was nothing left but the image they created." Donahue spiraled into addiction, lost everything, and died in solitude in 2001. But at least he had his moment of fame. The next man wasn't even given that choice. He only had one mission: survive, trading his body for rent. Van Johnson was MGM's signature nice guy next door throughout the 1940s. But in real life, Johnson once slept on warehouse floors and borrowed money for food. When director George Cukor spotted him at a cheap diner on Melrose, he said something that brought Van to tears. "I don't need you to act. I just need you to behave." That night, Van was invited to Cukor's estate. They auditioned in the bedroom. The next morning, Johnson walked away with a real screen test and a stack of rent money, enough for 3 months. Later, during a drinking session, Van confided to a friend, "I'm not proud of it, but I didn't want to go back to sleeping on park benches. Here, people don't ask who you are. They just ask, will you comply?" The boy next door became a star. But not all stars ever escape the shadow of those first nights when they had to trade their bodies just to survive. Undone by one headline. George Maharis was the golden face of early 60s television, famous for his role as Buzz Murdoch in Route 66. Handsome, rugged, masculine, Maharis captivated women and made men jealous. But one November night in 1967, it all came crashing down with a single headline in the Los Angeles Times. TV actor arrested in public restroom for indecent conduct. Court records revealed Maharis had been caught in an intimate exchange with an undercover LAPD officer in the restroom of the Westwood Hotel. The scandal didn't just raise questions about his sexuality, it made the studios abandon him overnight. A former director who worked with Maharis once said, "Everyone knew from the start he wasn't cast for his acting. He was beautiful and he was obedient." After the scandal, Maharis vanished from the screen. He lived reclusively, avoided interviews, and never spoke of that night again. The clean face behind dirty encounters. John Gavin was known as the cleanest face in Hollywood. By the end of the 1950s, with perfect looks, military polish, and charm to spare, he was the go-to actor for heroes, officers, and aristocrats. But what audiences didn't see was the list of strangers Gavin met outside studio hours. A former Universal Studios limo driver revealed in a quietly released 1984 memoir, Gavin was often driven to a Santa Monica apartment at midnight where men in tuxedos waited. No names, no questions. An hour later, he came out blank-faced and simply said, "Take me home, I need a shower." In return for these meetings, Gavin secured roles before scripts were even finished. No auditions, no questions. A Universal executive once admitted he was the perfect mask for the filth we were hiding behind the scenes. But at least Gavin survived. The next star wasn't so lucky. He died in the very bed he had once sold his youth and beauty to obtain. Death on a stranger's bed. On October 31st, 1968, police found Ramon Navarro dead in his Laurel Canyon home. His throat was strangled with a phone cord, mouth stuffed with tissue, dried blood everywhere. His killers were Paul and Tom Ferguson, two young hustlers he had called. They believed Navarro was hiding money in the house. But the case turned darker when reporters uncovered a list of special clients Navarro had entertained from the 1930s to 1950s. Directors, politicians, and A-list stars. One of them confessed on the witness stand, "I met him when I was 17. He said, 'Just behave and I'll get you in a film.' And he did." Navarro survived by selling himself under fake names. But even as a legend, he died alone and disgraced. Just another body no one wanted to claim. In contrast, the next star fell into a trap, not of survival, but of love. A love the world refused to accept. And the price was a life lived entirely in the shadows. Love in the shadows. Farley Granger rose to fame with Hitchcock's Rope in 1948, charming audiences with his soft features, dreamy eyes, and gentle presence. But behind that fragility was a life dominated by fear and desire. In 1950, Granger entered a consuming relationship with screenwriter Arthur Lawrence, a man who controlled every step of his career. In his memoir, Include Me Out, Granger admitted, "Arthur taught me how to love, how to pretend, and how to lie down when I needed to keep a role." The relationship lasted over 15 years, but no one in the industry dared speak of it. Every time Granger landed a new part, whispers followed. Who did he sleep with this week? A production assistant was once fired for joking about it on the Strangers on a Train set. Granger never confirmed, never denied. In one of his final interviews, he said, "I was used, but I don't regret it, because in this world, if you don't let them touch your body, they'll never let you touch the spotlight." The silent face of unwritten deals. Don Murray isn't a name whispered in the same breath as the legends of his time, but he once made Marilyn Monroe blush on screen in Bus Stop. With his dignified demeanor, steady gaze, and quiet charm, many believed Murray was the ultimate old-school gentleman. But behind that clean-cut image lay a past filled with deals that were never part of any script. According to the unpublished memoir of a casting assistant at 20th Century Fox, Murray was once pressured into using his body in exchange for his first film contract. He went into a private audition with a major director. 2 hours later, he came out pale as a ghost. When asked if he was okay, he whispered, "I think I just sold my soul to be seen through a lens." Murray never confirmed the story, but he never denied it either. In a 1982 interview, he offered a cryptic remark, "In Hollywood, some things are never written into contracts, but everyone knows what they have to do if they want their name on the dotted line." The cowboy who served more than dinner. With perfect teeth and matinee idol looks, Guy Madison was America's ideal man in The Adventures of Wild Bill Hickok. But before fame, he was just an unemployed Navy vet scraping by in Los Angeles. What kept him afloat wasn't the studio lot. It was the kitchens of elite mansions. A former employee of the Beverly Hills Hotel revealed Guy was hired not just to serve food, but to be part of the decor. Guests would request him shirtless, standing still like a statue for the first 20 minutes, then disappearing into the host's bedroom. An anonymous director wrote in a memoir, "Guy didn't mind. He was gorgeous and understood his role. I once saw him smile as someone handed him a room key, like it was a routine he'd rehearsed 1,000 times." Once stardom hit, Madison never mentioned those earlier days. But Hollywood never forgot, especially those who saw him in hotel bathrooms at 3 in the morning. The man who refused to bow. William Haynes was MGM's most bankable romantic comedy star in the late 1920s and one of the very few openly gay men in classic Hollywood. But before he could live authentically, Haynes survived by quietly selling himself to keep both himself and his partner afloat. According to a 1933 issue of Variety, when Haynes was caught in a hotel with a young man, he didn't apologize. Instead, he told the press, "I love him. I won't give him up." But few knew that early in his career, Haynes worked in secret gentlemen's clubs where entry required an invitation. A close friend recalled, "Bill once said, 'I don't work there for money. I work there to be seen, to be introduced, to be chosen.'" After the scandal, MGM fired him. But Haynes reinvented himself as a legendary interior designer. Even so, near the end of his life, he admitted, "I don't regret loving, but I do regret having to sell that love just to buy back my career." Not everyone survived like Haynes. One man didn't just sell his body. He brokered bodies for an entire generation of young men in Hollywood's shadows. The secret pimp of classic Hollywood. If anyone knew who slept with whom in classic Hollywood, it was Scotty Bowers. A former Marine, Bowers became the unofficial pleasure coordinator for the entire industry. Starting from a humble gas station on Hollywood Boulevard, from 1946 onward, Scotty wasn't just pumping gas. He was introducing young men to VIP clients. Many were aspiring actors, unknown models, or recently discharged servicemen. In his memoir, Full Service, Bowers recalled, "Rock Hudson, Cary Grant, Spencer Tracy, they were all clients. I was just the middleman." He claimed to have arranged over 1,000 encounters over 3 decades and participated in more than a third of them himself. "They came to me because they had no choice. They needed roles. They needed rent. They needed to survive." Scotty was never sued, never caught on tape. And when he died in 2019, he left behind a vault of names, hundreds of icons who once lay down just to stand under Hollywood's lights. The question that remains. So the male gods who once made millions of hearts flutter turned out to have sold themselves in the dark just to get a chance to stand in front of cameras. The question is, has this stopped, or is it still happening? more sophisticated, more secretive, and more dangerous than ever. Think about today's sudden breakout stars, the faces that appear overnight on every screen, the bodies that seem too perfect, the smiles that never quite reach their eyes. Are we looking at talent, or are we looking at the latest generation of beautiful people who paid a price we'll never know? What do you think about the truth behind the spotlight? If you had the choice, would you choose to be true to yourself or trade everything for fame? The shadows of Hollywood's golden age might be darker than we ever imagined, and those shadows might still be falling across the industry today. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories they never wanted you to hear.